Why did you leave?
Julia's email was provocative enough. I showed up. Yeah.
So our guest today is Katy Valentine, and you are a PhD.
Mhm.
And what exactly? I know it has to do something with biblical scholarship, but what in particular
That's it. Yeah.
is your
Yeah.
PhD?
PhD in the New Testament in biblical studies.
Wow.
And it's interesting because I'm not exactly like the work I do now isn't exactly in that field, but I definitely use the skill set and the research. I'm on little mini research hunts all the time. So I
Very
have like
good.
one foot in the academic world, not even a foot. I have like my toes are in the academic world, and then now I'm a full-time coach and spiritual strategist.
I just think it's fantastic. And I will just say how I became interested in this, Julia, and then maybe you can tell your part of it. I am endlessly fascinated in the topic of meaning. What
Mm.
is meaning today? How do we construct meaning, etc.? And over the last, let's say, year or so, I've been exposed to a lot of what I consider to be the new biblical scholarship. So
Mm.
Dan McClellan, uh, is it Jennifer Bird?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jennifer Bird, whom I loved. Um, Various other people that I've gotten to meet and not meet, but been exposed to. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so fascinating. And then I became exposed to your work, which takes on a whole different, I think, aspect of spirituality.
Yeah. We go super woo. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just love it. And so my career background was 32 years at CIA, the CIA, and so I come by this eccentrically but very honestly.
Like
So,
everything.
yeah, very eccentrically but very honestly.
Yeah. And let's see. I had this experience in college with my wonderful best friend Mary, who was a Buddhist, but she was raised Christian in the South. And she was a religious studies major. And, she knew I was a neuroscience major and into computer science and stuff. And I would always talk with her and I would say, but what is it in people that makes them want to fabricate this God thing? And she just turned to me, and she's super smart, and I really respected her. And she turned to me and she said, well, just isn't that kind of arrogant? And she stopped me cold. And
Yeah.
and I was just like, well, damn, yeah, correct. That is arrogant. And what is it about me that makes it want to be that people are fabricating this God thing? And when I
Yeah.
started
Good
to look into
self-reflective.
that, right, I started reading Karen Armstrong, Story of God, or is it just called God? I forget that
Yeah, I
beautiful
know which one
book.
you're talking about.
Yeah. And then other books like about the Jewish Buddhists, etc. And long story short, this is part of why I ended up converting to Judaism, partly because I felt there was a familial tie, but partly because
Mm.
um, I just loved the questioning. I just loved, like, I
Yeah.
was raised as a Unitarian, which is hardly a religion, and I and I really wanted a relationship with God in my religion, and I wanted the questioning, and so that's where I'm at, and that's sort of my journey here. Um, but I feel like what you are bringing, when Carmen sent me, this interview of you, I was like, oh, well, what you're doing is the most important thing, it seems to me, right now in the evolution of religion, which is you're
Oh, thank
bringing,
you.
yeah, well, you're bringing the people who say, well, I'm spiritual but not religious, and you're helping them feel at home and helping them know how they're both spiritual and religious. And
Yeah.
that's really powerful.
Yeah, and my crowd tends to be loosely aligned with Jesus following Christianity, whether in their background or in their current life, or sometimes goes from one to the other. However, I don't try to define that for people. It was interesting because someone in my Facebook group the other day said, they basically said, like, is there a litmus test? Is there like a statement of beliefs on here? I was like, no, I'm not in control. I'm not in control of that. I'm not in control of what you believe, nor do I want to be. And, interestingly, I think my Jewish colleagues have been sort of really, really impactful on me. And when we can understand Jesus as a first century Jew,
Yeah.
I'm
the
sorry,
world
so what
really,
kind of
really,
Jew?
as a first century Jew.
Oh, first century. Yes, sorry.
Yeah. The world really opens up. And like Christians have been pretty anti-Semitic in the way that we've interpreted the New Testament over the millennia. And really seeing Jesus as, or the Pharisees and the scribes who are maybe questioning Jesus, seeing those as like genuine questions.
Yeah, those
rather
are
than
questions.
someone trying to trick him. And so, Julia, I really appreciate the entering into the big questions, because I think ultimately that's what Jesus actually shows us how to do in the New Testament. It should open us up to be more expansive, not less.
Right.
Mm.
Coming from the student mind, coming from the questioning space,
Yeah.
because that's where love is, and that's where he's coming from.
Yeah, that's where love is, and that's where our new insights are. That's where the interdimensional realities are.
Yeah.
It's in asking better questions, not coming up with better dogma. Like, who cares?
Yeah, right. Like, exactly, who cares?
How did your journey occur? Wherever you started, and whatever you want to say about it.
Sure. So I started as a kid in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I went to a Methodist church on the weekends. I went to Catholic school during the week, and I'm surrounded, and my many good friends are all very Southern Baptist and evangelical. So if there's a religious hang-up, I probably have it. If there's a religious good in all of those, I probably have that too. But the biggest lesson for me really in all that I kind of absorbed and didn't really realize till later is that built into every single week, and I mean from the friendships I had to the school I went to the church I went to, I saw there's not just one way. All of these people were very faithful. They were all doing it in very different ways, and I was exposed to all of that. And I am immensely grateful for that. There's good evangelicals. There's good Catholics. There's good, very boring Protestants. And then there's, people who aren't so great in all of those traditions too, right? We're all a big soupy mess. I studied religion in college. I got a master's in the New Testament. And do you know what you do with a master's in the New Testament? Nothing. There's no job openings for that. So you go and get a PhD. So that's what I did. So I went and got a PhD. While I did that in Berkeley, California. So while you're in Berkeley, of course, you have to study like the goddess and many chakras and stuff like that. So I did. And so I had been intuitive really my whole life, and Berkeley was the perfect place to explore even more of that. So I did. In the meantime, I did something crazy, which was I heard the call to become ordained. And I got to tell you, every time someone hears that, like feels that kind of prompt and begins to explore it, no one ever says, "Oh, yay! My life's going to change, and I'm going to be really poor, and I'm going to work in a church." Everyone says, "Well, shit." You only do it because you're really, really deeply called to do it, or you're a megalomaniac. It's like one of the other. So exploring. So it was like by day I was in my studies and exploring and becoming ordained, and at night I was like studying chakras and past lives and dimensions and meditation and stuff like that. So I finally decided I was going to stop pursuing the academic world, which was an awesome decision. And I stopped pursuing that and started doing my own coaching. So I began helping Christians learn how to be more metaphysical in their journeys. And that has evolved into now helping entrepreneurs and leaders and incorporate spirituality and receive spiritual healing in their journey, primarily through lots of different practices and coaching, including shamanic tools.
Including what kind of tools?
Shamanic tools.
Shamanic tools.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the one from Northern California is nodding.
Yeah.
Shamanic tools, yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I just don't know what that means. I can, pretend I know what that means, but so what
What
I'm
does that
not
mean?
sure that definition is the right word, but how do you explain
Yeah.
the phrase?
Sure. Yeah. And the definitions vary widely, depending on who you ask. So I'm American and I live in Ireland now. And so after I've been in Ireland about a year and I was interested in shamanism and I saw a holy advertisement go across my Instagram feed and I was like, oh, finally, that's the one for me. Like I just intuitively knew. So I enrolled in the Irish School for Shamanic Studies. Hello, Irish School for Shamanic Studies. Give them a shout out here. And so, in the philosophy in that school that I attended for a year is that shamanism is one of the oldest forms of spirituality. It is not tied to a religion, and it exists across most cultures across time and space. And the things that shamanism has across cultures, and not everyone called it shamanism. Obviously, that's a Siberian word from one of the Siberian tribes that has been applied to this phenomena that seems to exist globally. But a shaman, or in my case, a shamanic practitioner, is someone who goes or helps people travel to other worlds to collect spiritual information and bring it back for the good of the community. So that's what I help people do.
Yeah, you have a foot when you talk about having a toe in academia and stuff. You have, I totally relate to that. It's being of multiple worlds and helping.
Yeah, right.
Right. And using what is in one to help the other. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought of it in that way, but yes, these bridges exist in many, many different ways, I think, in our lives.
Now, I ran into something just last night, which I imagine one or both of you are familiar with, which is Urantia or Urantia.
Oh, I thought it was pronounced Urantia, but that's because
or Urantia. I don't know how you.
I don't know how to say it either. Yeah, but I know of it.
Yeah.
No, I literally just like learned the word yesterday and read a little bit about it. But it just, I mean, the big learning I got is that there must be lots of traditions like this.
Oh, yeah.
That I am not aware of, and that some of them exist dormant, some of them perhaps are more alive. And they are just so fascinating to me. So I have several rules of thumb. One of them is that we are destined to live in a universe without explanation.
I love that.
I mean, perhaps at some point, some generation will figure it out, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be mine.
Right.
And so that's one. And then my second rule of thumb is I respect all wisdom traditions. All of them. I try not to be judgmental about them. And I think generally I'm very curious about them all. That way of being is so alien to 95% of my colleagues and former colleagues that they just think I'm nuts, completely nuts. And I think
welcome to the tribe. Yeah.
I think I have enough residual respect from these people that they haven't completely written me off yet, but it's possible that it will happen.
It's so interesting. I think in our modern technological world, we have confused technology with wisdom and knowledge with wisdom. And I think I saw something years ago now from like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who said, well, like, okay, people are getting information about the stars or the planets or whatever, but they're not learning how to interpret them. We need to really incorporate this into schools. And the rest of us are like, that's what the humanities do. Right, literally, when you cut humanities from education and you don't require it, yes, you're teaching people how to think that facts are statements in and of themselves. No, they always require interpretation.
Right.
And opinions do and everything. Like literally in New Testament, that's what you do. You read ancient documents and learn how to interpret them without thinking that your way is the only way.
Now, do you have any of the ancient languages or yeah?
Indeed. Yes. A little rusty now because I don't have to use them all the time. But yeah, it's if you're in biblical studies, you know Greek and Hebrew. I had to take one semester of Aramaic, which I remember like one fact about. Sorry, professors. It was a long time ago.
This is probably going to sound like the goddess tradition coming in, but I think it's just a feminist question, or really just a question about humanity. So in Hebrew, Emmanuel is one of the names of God, Emmanuel.
Hmm.
If you look at the letters, so in Hebrew, you don't generally write down the vowels, so the vowels are
Right.
inferred. And so if you look at the letters for Emmanuel, it could also be our godmother, our mother god.
Ooh, oh yeah, the like Amma.
What do you think? Yeah, like Ima.
Uh-huh. Um, yeah, yeah, like Emma. Yeah, I like thinking about the vowel patterns, and I am, like I said, pretty rusty. I would have to see it written out. But I'm sure someone has written on this. So,
All right,
ultrasound
someone
scholars don't
let us
write in.
know.
Yeah, don't write in. But yeah, no, I love the idea. Like I love the idea, and we do see some feminine images for God throughout Hebrew Scripture and New Testament. They're in the if it's a line, they're like an occasional here, here, here. But obviously, the ancient people were able to envision God as feminine and masculine. I think we have opportunities to bust that open even more now. We should be. In my opinion, we should be respectful of these ancient texts, but also not limited to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even in the beginning, right, male and female, like in our image, we
Yeah.
made them male and female, right? I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
in Bereshit? So in the
Yeah.
beginning, in Genesis, and so it feels like even the ancient text was saying, in our image.
Yeah. In
There's
our
the
image
in
too.
the plural.
It's the
Yeah,
plural, God's a they. Yeah. From
yeah.
the beginning. And little did you know, my current research is on trans identity and gender identity
Yep. Yeah.
in the Bible. And so
We
Genesis
sort of knew.
1:20,
We sort of knew.
yeah, Genesis 1:27-28 is kind of one of those linchpin verses that inspires a lot of gender variant people today.
And what is that? What is that verse? What are those verses?
Yeah, that's the one where like in it says in our image God created them male and female.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not citing that precisely, but and so many gender variant people see that and see that within God is both male and female
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
simultaneously. And so that's
Right.
yeah, built into the
Yes.
fabric of the origins of our image is a God who is not in fact limited by gender.
So there's no locked door.
There's no locked door. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
Well, and
door
there's
closed.
no like, oh, I don't see myself in God, right?
Right.
No matter who you are, you can see yourself in God or a reflection of yourself, and that allows you to have a better. How do you help people have a relationship with God who are coming with religious baggage that keeps? Because I know one of the biggest problems is people want to have a relationship with God when they're seeking spiritual help, but they have all this baggage that tells them like what that means is God's always going to be scolding them, or they have
Right.
to bargain with God or all sorts of shit. How do you help them with that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do, I give a lot of historical information, but that can only really take you so far.
Yeah.
Right. Like knowledge will only get you so far because we have to engage the heart and the soul journey in this as well. So one of the things I invite people to do is just actually try on new names for God. And so I have clients who, and some people did this before they even get to me, but they'll give God a nickname like Bob or Donna or something like that. Like just it's sort of something that's very, very friendly to try on. I encourage people to try on God with new pronouns. A very simple exercise I've done with people before too is have them envision that they are the creator of a universe. And the universe that they create out of, mystery and creativity and love, how do they want that universe to see them? Do they want that universe to see them as a totalitarian jerk who's a voyeur in their lives? And they're like, no, God, no, I don't. Or do they want their creation to see them as loving and someone who sees them as beautiful and cares for them? And I've never had anyone tell me, oh no, I want to be the totalitarian jerk.
Right.
Someone says that probably says a lot more about their inner upbringing than anything else. But Right. So we do want to create out of love. And so even just that simple exercise can help kind of flip the script
Yeah.
for people. And then we like to meet guides and angels and things like that. And that helps too.
Wow.
Do
Bring in the
you,
love, bring in the love information. Yeah.
I have so many questions and, I can't even ask them all. One are, what are how do you feel or how do you incorporate non-Western,
Mm.
outside of Judeo-Christian traditions? That's one. How do you think about AI and the spirituality
Ooh,
of
interesting.
AI?
Yeah.
What is your favorite scriptural verses, either from
Mm.
the canon that we know of or another? I mean, I could just keep going, but
Yeah. Oh, those are great. Remind me the first question now.
the first one was, how do you incorporate
Oh,
non-Judeo-Christian
right. Thank you.
AI
Yeah.
favorite verse or
Non Judeo-Christian I think is an excellent question and super tricky. So with great care and great respect and a lot of research. And so one of the things that the spiritual but not religious metaphysical woo-woo crowd tends to do is say, oh, Kuan Yin is my guide from Asia, which is fine. I've had lovely encounters and experiences with Kuan Yin, no problem with that. But then they want to claim to be an expert on Kuan Yin and tell other people how to experience Kuan Yin, which is wildly inappropriate and disrespectful of the cultures where Kuan Yin originated. So that kind of thing, I always encourage people to go and do their homework. Always, always, always talk to people for whom that phenomena, whatever it is they're experiencing, is coming alive for them. And I found, interesting non-Judeo-Christian cultures and religions tend to not have the black and white dualism that Western Abrahamic religions tend to have. And so they're like, sure, yeah, you're welcome. I mean, they want generally like to be treated with respect and honoring their own wisdom. Who doesn't? Which only makes sense. But that being said, I mean, I do incorporate a lot of chakra work into what I do because I found it just so helpful and so healing. And I pay my props. And I have a big books that talk about the origins of chakras that I refer people to as well. And so trying to use them within, I would say, I incorporate elements of non-Western traditions into what I do with care. I also encourage people to explore their own indigenous practices. And so from their ancestry to explore what would have been indigenous to them. And this is one of the awful things that Christianity to some extent, but also racism has done. Racism has not only robbed people of color and indigenous people from their own traditions, it has robbed white people from their own ancestry.
of course.
And
Yeah.
instead of being Irish or German or Scandinavian or whatever, everyone's just white. And then no one knows what their actual indigenous traditions were. So one of the things I really appreciated about my shamanic school was that it is reclaiming native Irish traditions with an eye to global perspectives.
Right.
And so that I think that works really, really well. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious what you all think about it now. Like what's good, what's bad about this? How do we do it ethically? Yeah.
I'm like in a bliss state because this is such a great question and I feel like I don't have much to say, so I'm just beaming. But but I do think there is a question about there's this idea of cultural appropriation, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
concern about cultural appropriation, and sometimes it borders on pathological. Like the deal with culture is that it spreads, and the good stuff from one culture, if it's good, it spreads into another culture, it becomes part of that culture, and it's slutty, culture's slutty. Everyone's sleeping with everyone else, right? And so it's like it seems very parochial to me to be like, that's another culture. We don't want to mess around. He's like, no, you know what? Experiment. Yeah. Okay. So you're into Kuan Yin. I agree. It's pretty crazy to be like, oh, now I know everything about Kuan Yin. But that's crazy about any, people do that all the time about everything. And so it's sort of like, yes, of course, it would be useful to understand the cultural background. But at the same time, like, if Kuan Yin helps you just a little bit and it helps you to think of her in sort of superficial ways, that later, if you learn more about Kuan Yin or learn more about the culture, you will grow to appreciate more superficial. Fine. I mean, like, it's hard enough to be alive. There's this, I was digging for this quote from this wonderful book. Do you know this book? Love Poems from God, Daniel Ladinsky.
No, I want to.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I'm going to get you this book.
Oh,
You will send me
Yeah.
a way for you to get this book.
okay.
But Meister Eckhart said,
Mm.
it is a lie, any talk of God that does not comfort you.
Yes.
And I
love
feel
that.
like that's the thing. It's just hard to be a human. And
Right,
whatever
why
it
make it
takes,
harder?
why
Right.
make it harder? Right? Like, whatever it takes. Let's not spend our extra energy pointing fingers and saying that someone's, superficial or whatever. Everyone's superficial about things periodically.
Right.
Correct.
So
Well,
let's see what we can do.
yeah. Well, and I find sometimes the deity, the energy, the culture, the element, sometimes it chooses you.
Yeah.
And so if it chooses me, it would be grossly disrespectful for me to say no
Well, correct.
as well, or to say like, oh no, you're not my culture. If I'm going to say no, I need a better reason than that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not quite out of my culture, but just as a point of reference, as an example, and about a year, some change ago, maybe 15 months ago or so, in a shamanic journey, Aphrodite showed up. Well, I'm
Ooh.
not Greek. I mean, it's like part of kind of white people's culture, like Western culture, but like I'm not Greek. And I mean, honestly, I think I had dismissed the Greek gods and goddesses as archaic relics, right? Like, I mean, I study the New Testament,
Right.
and right, and so like these gods goddesses kind of come up. So I just kind of thought of them as like things of the past. And she was like, no, like I'm a thing. It's an energy. Well, I need to know those roots, right? So that fortunately that is in my wheelhouse to be able to know and study. That I can do. But so that means reading original myths. It means seeing what are the biases of that myth. Just because it's an ancient text doesn't mean we take it at face value.
Right.
That's insanity. All the gods and goddesses are ruthless, vengeful, horrific beings. If we do that, instead, we need to take those myths and see what was the agenda in writing those. And then with her in particular, I look at a lot of material culture, because like what are actual people doing and thinking is quite different than what is being written down in the myths. So that's just an example. This is it's in my wheelhouse, but outside of my direct experience or culture. So then I get to do some research.
Yeah. Well, what did
Around
Aphrodite have
that.
to say to you? Like, what does she tell you about our,
Oh my
like,
gosh. That she wanted to be the guide of my coaching practice and of my business.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so, but it was interesting because then when I went back and looked through the journeys, I saw she had been popping up. I just hadn't given it a lot of thought. I was like, she was there in the corner. I would see her, but like in this one, she came like full front. And so that's the name of my coaching business is Soul Forge Coaching, and that's one of the reasons why. Because she's also a goddess in Cyprus. She's a goddess of the forge. Like copper mines are associated, copper forges are associated with her, and then so is the goddess and Saint Bridget in Ireland.
Okay.
And so they're both important.
Wow.
They're both important. Yeah. But Carmen, you asked the question, so now I'm dying to know, like for cultural, different cultures and how to experience
How I
spirituality.
think about it, well,
Yeah.
it made me think about, my grandmother who I adore. She died, just about 20 years ago now, I guess, at a very good age, 96 and a half.
Abuela
And,
Julia, right?
Obdulia,
Julia.
Doña Yulia Obdulia.
Yes. Yeah.
And she had all sorts of wisdom traditions that were, vaguely Catholic.
Right.
all the
Yeah.
way to, not, right? And so
Yeah.
I wish I could find it. I found it once. This was my mother's house. And she had a torn white magic book, sort of the spiritualism, vaguely Catholic, but basically a book of spells that
Love
my
it.
mother brought out once and used one of the spells when I had a concussion and she was trying to make me feel better. So and then my father's mother was probably 50% Taino, indigenous people of the Caribbean.
Mm.
And so, all of those traditions are, they're just things that I have lived with
Yeah.
all my life. And then the other thing, I'm constantly looking for clues to what I believe is my Jewish tradition, because so many of the Latinos, Hispanic people
Oh, yeah.
who came early on to the New World were removed
Conversos.
and undesirable people. And so many of
Yeah.
them were Jewish or
Yeah.
Muslim converts or something like
Mhm.
that. And so the tradition in my family from my grandmother was that we always changed the sheets on Friday. Always, 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 always. And I would say, well, why can't we change the sheets on another day? My grandmother would say, nope, not allowed. So those are little hints
Mhm.
of deeper traditions. Um, I I just think it's for me, it's just so sad that all of these traditions and ways of knowing are excluded from the, well, in my case, the national security
Mm.
traditions, not
Right.
tradition, the national security way of thinking about the world. And I just think it's very sad. I don't think there's anything we can do about it. At least not
Oh, there is.
well, not in an immediate way.
Well, we're talking to a lot of the people in the national security
We
infrastructure now.
are, and they do listen to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
I have NDA agreements if anyone wants to get coaching.
Oh,
ah,
okay.
We can
see?
do that. We can do that. Yes.
Oh, yes. I know. I think we're
Yes.
we're hell bent on infiltrating the national security infrastructure with ideas that can change the
Yeah.
world. I think that's a
Well,
valiant effort.
yeah. I mean, imagine if everyone in these like positions of high level and power were really in, I'm not saying they're not, you're probably the only one I know, Carmen. But if everyone's in touch with their, sorry, got it.
Ooh, you
The
caught
spirits
that?
are speaking because my crayons just all spilled. Yeah, but if everyone was in touch with their intuition, really moving with their guides, really in touch with that divine spark, it definitely changes the way we relate to one another. And
Ooh,
yeah, opens the door for such greater compassion and astuteness and awareness and making the right call, the right judgment calls. Yeah.
You
I
raised
got
something.
excited.
Yeah.
Sorry. When you said moving with their guides. So when I used to hang out with a bunch of spiritual people on the in California, everyone knew what that meant. Um, I was sort of irritated by it because it felt a little bit like sacrilegious to me, like multiple
Oh, yeah.
versions of God, like
Oh, okay. Okay.
right. Like from a monotheistic standpoint, even though like
Right.
I'm hardly your devout Jew, but I sort of want to know how you deal with that question because people must have that question with the idea that there's this guy. I sort of think of it as like an angel, I guess, but that's not the same thing as a little mini God. And how you handle
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it comes up a lot, especially with people coming out of evangelical Christian traditions who have been told it's only Jesus, it's only Jesus, it's only God. And so I'll just clarify. Usually I say spiritual allies because that kind of covers the whole gamut of spiritual beings that we are surrounded by. But this is they're not in fact God, and God in God's infinite abundance has many created beings of whom humans and this 3D Earth that we live in are only some of them. But we're a very small fraction.
Right.
And so the whole host of other beings, energies, angels, guides, power animals, whatever names we choose to call these, are part of that created universe. And in the same way that if I lose my car keys, not an infrequent occurrence, if I lose my car keys and I have a friend over, I will ask the friend to help me look for my car keys because I'm not masochistic. Two pairs of eyes and hands are better than one. And in the same way, I will request spiritual assistance from my unseen spiritual allies to assist me as well. I think the mistake we often make is sometimes I see people treating their guides like they're their servants. Like, whoa, 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 whoa! You're not bossing them around. For goodness sake, they're like have free will. You're making a polite request.
Right.
For their assistance, and that means we also, if this is a kind of friendship or relationship, we need to spend time with them other than, I have a problem.
Right.
So that's my kind of 2-minute explanation.
It's like my good friend has she has this Hail Mary tradition, Hail Mary full of grace, help me find a parking space. It's amazing how actually useful that phrase, right?
Yeah, especially if you're talking to Mary other times.
And I do.
Right,
there's something I have always found fantastic in the Marian tradition of the Catholic Church. And
it's unbelievable.
And of course that's very popular in Ireland. I am sure still the case.
Yeah. I just read the books. The names are going to escape me, about the Buddhist man who began saying he's a white guy from America who had become Buddhist, and he began saying the rosary every day.
Yeah.
And feels guided to do it. It's an amazing book. I really.
This is the one he goes
really
on like
powerful.
a retreat or something, and then he starts doing it.
Mm-hmm. And he never becomes Christian or Catholic or anything like that, but like the rosary becomes this, like all these amazing kind of spiritual revelations happen as a result of this. So yeah, it's such power both within and outside the tradition.
Where are you on evil?
What, pro? I don't know.
No, I mean, like, do you believe evil exists? If so, do you think that evil is part of this created world that God created for some reason? Wait, yeah. I mean, I don't even want to ask any more questions of that.
I think I waver. Actually, I definitely don't believe in a Satan or in the tradition, in a sort of like minions of the devil are after us, and sort of an exorcist Hollywood-inspired vision, or even a medieval vision of heaven and hell. I think I have experienced evil. I think the world has. Right? We see it all the time. I think 99.9% of times that is created from trauma and from humans being jerks.
Yep.
And suffering. Within so I think we're all familiar. Anyone alive in the Western world is familiar with how not even mainstream, but the small segment who have the loudest voices of Christians talk about this. Right? We don't need to revisit that. But I think a error, in my opinion, that I see a lot in the woo-woo world is saying, well, like, everything, like this kind of everything happens for a reason. Yeah. Thing. And so it reduces acts of massive evil into, it's something that was meant to be.
Right.
Yeah.
That is totally against the gospel that I read and that I follow.
Right.
That is totally against my understanding of God, who is always encouraging us to be better humans and to help our communities be better, which means reducing evil, working against systemic violence. And so, yeah, I do think evil exists. There's no like sort of Satan figure in my mind. Within the super woo-woo world, sometimes we do have to deal with like demonic entities, or like entities that are not on the scale of like the side of like good and love. But mostly, I believe that those are leftover residues from humans being jerks.
Right.
Yeah. There's
doing
something
massive
about
acts of evil.
Right, like the consciousness kind of splits off and sticks around
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes.
It has that kind of psychic, like sticky
Mm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more we can eradicate all of that in the world, the more we're helping the world be. And I think that's one of the things I love about this work. I do think we're called to be movers and shakers. That's really good when we can have great impact all at once, but also when we change our own hearts, when we change our own minds, that does have a ripple effect. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And so that, like, sending that loving energy out into the world is so powerful and so important. And we, especially within Western traditions, we have a hero complex where if we don't save the world, we might as well not try.
Mm.
Like, if you
Yes.
can't be Jesus or Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa, why bother? But actually, the message to me, the message of all the spirituality is that our little actions matter. They matter a great deal. And so, like, your podcast, like all of this kind of stuff,
Yes.
has an impact. It helps eradicate that evil, by erosion
Right.
rather than a tidal flood.
Right.
And that's okay. Like, that's okay.
Mm.
Um, but I really want to get to the AI question because I
Yeah,
want to
go
know what
ahead.
Carmen thinks, because I don't have an answer. So I'm just going to pitch
Um,
it back to you. I
well,
have
I
not
mean, I
thought
think
at
maybe,
all about AI and spirituality other than
yeah.
watching like one season of Westwood.
I mean, I
That's
think
it.
Gloria, I'm sorry, that was a slip, but Julia speak on the AI thing.
Well, but I think you have a thing to say about it that's coming against that it sounds like is coming against your tongue. So what did you want to say about it?
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
really think I have anything to say about AI. I mean, I think that uh, I think that there's some kind of wisdom or uh, pattern or process that AI is opening up to us that is not yet fully understood. And I don't know what it is, but I, yeah, I think that there's a depth, there will eventually be a depth to what AI is telling us that will take on a spiritual aspect.
Hmm.
See?
I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and that's all I can say about that.
Well, I will pick up from that then because I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you. And I was um just talking with some Gen Zers about AI, and they were concerned about them taking their jobs. But also, we talked about the deeper meaning of AI. And one of the things we got to is this idea that AI will show us that the soul is real.
Mm.
Hmm.
Whereas
How
right now we
so?
think, well, right now we think of the soul. So the fear is AI is going to replace
Oh,
us.
okay.
And then
Yes,
there's
yes.
this, when people say, like in Congress, like, there's something special about humans. What they're not saying is humans have souls.
Hmm.
And that's actually a thing. Like, that's actually a measure. Someday we will have scientific evidence of the soul. And while eventually maybe AIs will have souls, who knows how that's going to spin out. Um, but that would be by separating intelligence, by people realizing that it's not intelligence that we're really after when we want to, for instance, be friends with someone or be colleagues with someone. It's actually this soul to soul connection that we're really after. That
Yes.
will show that to us and we'll say, ooh, this soul thing is a real thing that matters
Hmm.
more than any of this other stuff. And I think that'll be a profound revolution towards post-materialism in the world.
Hmm.
Cool. Cool. I like that. It gives me whole new things to think about. Well, and I mean, on a very superficial level, I mean, I use ChatGPT quite frequently. Right. no matter, you can give it very good instructions, it will never sound like you.
Right,
Like I can give it very good instructions.
right.
But I will never write about delving into the flowery essence of the ancient festival of Beltane so that you can expand your blah, blah, blah. I mean, like it uses all these kind of ridiculous things because, in fact, it's compiling knowledge and then spitting it back out.
Right.
So it doesn't have the power of interpretation yet. It can give us quite a lot to interpret, but that still requires a human consciousness.
Well, yeah, I built
Yeah.
an AI to flip the script because I got so sick of it saying stupid shit. And
Yeah.
so I've got one that just asks you questions to try to like, so basically I give it instructions to say, you only get to really ask questions. You could comment on someone's answer, but you just keep asking questions on the topic to help them get to a place where they're having an insight. And honestly, I think that's how AIs are going to be used, is to guide you in a Socratic way towards your
Mhm.
insight and towards your wisdom. I think that's a really good
Yeah.
use of AI. I
Yeah.
do
And
think
it
it's
tells
useful in
me
other
what people
ways.
are thinking,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
super helpful. Like,
yeah.
because sometimes people are asking questions that I don't think to ask. So
Hmm.
Yeah,
AI is very good at helping me see through the eyes of others,
Right.
which
yeah.
is a spiritual value.
But see,
Yeah.
this is the soul to soul connection. So it's almost like that's the middleman, like middle person.
Hmm.
Like it's helping you develop the soul to soul connection. Now, to the extent AI can help us do that with other humans, that's fantastic. And then we could develop connections with AI with AIs and see how that feels and how it's different. I mean, I think this is a
Mm,
real learning path.
right.
I'm excited. Anyway, it's such
Yeah.
a good
Oh,
question.
yeah. Very great. Yeah.
What do you wish for? Can I ask I know we're running out of time. I want to see if I could sneak in a question about what do you wish for? Like you were saying that only megalomaniacs basically are happy about hearing the call to be a minister or a pastor. I
Yeah.
totally get that, but at the same time, like wouldn't it be great if you had a mega church like you in particular? And is that a thing that you would like? Because I could see that happening.
Oh gosh, no, not a mega church for me. So I did pastor for 4 years and really really loved it. So I was associate minister at a church in my denomination in Northern California, and it was wonderful. I mean, I could have stayed there forever doing that until I felt the kind of holy prompt that it was time to move on. And so yeah, so it's very sacred work. I really loved it. So once you get over the oh shit, what am I getting myself into? It's actually really fun. Lots of learning curves. You have to keep humble. Lots of skill sets you have to use when when you're pastoring. That a lot, 99% of it happens behind closed doors, so the public never really sees that. For mega churches in particular, um, though they have very loud voices and a lot of visibility, 70% of churches across the world are small churches,
Hmm.
meaning I think 200 or less, and many much, much smaller than that. So it's actually the power of the small local church um, that is grossly underestimated, grossly ignored, and where people are doing the most faithful work. And I say church very loosely. I think this, congregation maybe is what I should say. Does that mean they're all perfect? Of course not. Does it mean they don't have toxic people in it? No, it doesn't, because they're human. And churches are there in part to help toxic people erode some of their toxicness.
Right.
Does that, I mean, those churches are perfect? No, it doesn't. So I actually believe that the power of the small church is incredible. Is incredible. So were I ever to return to a church, it would, for me, need to be a smaller or a medium-sized one
Mm.
to do that. And it's interesting because in my coaching, sometimes people will sort of say, especially from my kind of old world. Well, oh, what a great ministry. I'm like, whoa. This is not my coaching is actually not my ministry. My ministry lies, I have volunteer work that is my ministry. I feel like my scholarship is related, at least to my ministry. My coaching is my coaching, and that's people pay me and pay me pretty well for that. My ministry is something quite different. And so for me, those worlds are not that they're completely separated because they all inform each other, So no mega church for me. So I just spent a good chunk of 2023 in San Antonio helping out first my in-laws, and then my dad had
Antonio, that's
surgery
where
in
I
San
am. I'm
Antonio.
in San
Are
Antonio.
you? Oh, yes, I was there. It was good. It was a good year to spend there. But I was helping my dad out, my parents out, because he had surgery up in the north part of the city in one of the Methodist hospitals. And so we had to pass by Cornerstone, the Jim Hagee
Yes, Jaheki,
church,
Jaheki, yes.
all the time. My mom was like, we should just go one Sunday. And I was like, I will, no, it goes against every moral fiber of my being.
Yes, exactly.
I will
Right,
not
right,
go
right,
to that
right.
church.
Yes,
He's anti everything. And I was like,
exactly.
I know that he would have no respect for me as a female ordained woo-woo metaphysical
Right, right.
Christo expansive person. So like, no, why would I put myself in that position? But I know a lot of people give him a lot of money. Yeah.
No, I know. Interesting. Yeah.
You
So,
could redefine what a mega church is. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
no, there's something, there's just something so wrong about how things like the John Hagee and that way of being, which is just I can't stand it. And yet I have my cousin who lives here in San Antonio, and she is the most wonderful human being I know. And she is blessed and loved in a way that is just beyond goodness. So I know that there are ways of being loving, which are fantastic. And I know that that's true, right?
Is she in that church or in one
No,
of
no,
the
no, no, she's not in that
oh,
church.
okay, okay.
No, no,
Okay.
oh, no, no, no.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
But she's just so loving that it's just she's one of the most beloved people that I know of. Anyway,
She's like a revelation from God.
she is. I mean,
I think I
you
know
know,
what you mean. Yeah,
she is
she's
like a revelation.
sort of like God said, like, here, what about this?
What about this? Here, this is fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it was just great to talk to you. Well, how do people get in touch with
You.
you about your practice, how to become a client? I know you have a website, but what can you?
Yeah. Yeah, the easiest way is probably my website. So it's Katy Valentine, Katy, Valentine.com. So from there you can find the freebies and all that. You can email me any number of things. I'm on all the socials, but depending on which social you like. I'm actually not on all of them. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Are you on
I
LinkedIn at
should
all?
clarify. I am on LinkedIn. Yeah, I
We
am on
will tag
LinkedIn.
you on LinkedIn when we post
Okay,
this.
perfect. I'm not on TikTok or the latest Snap, whatever,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah.
So do you have any word of wisdom for us?
Yeah.
Preach.
Preach. That's exactly what came into my head, Carmen. I was like, preach.
Preach.
I'll tell you what. I think you asked about favorite Bible verse, and it's from Romans. That nothing, not powers or principalities, can separate us from the love of Jesus Christ. Please,
Right.
please incorporate. I didn't quote it precisely, but that there's that sense there, and I'll explain why. The ancient Greeks were sort of paranoid. It kind of resemble modern evangelical Christians. They were sort of paranoid about like all the spirits that were all around all the time, which were like the powers and the principalities. And so they envisioned them in these layers around the world that went up into the highest heaven. And that God, their idea of God or the gods were far removed, way above that. So actually very not intimately connected to humans. So when Paul says nothing can separate you from the love of Jesus Christ, not powers or principalities or any of that stuff, none of those layers, in fact, exist. Like nothing can separate us from the love of the divine. So I'll leave us with an ironic quote from Paul.
Yes.
As the sermon that we are infinitely loved, we are infinitely surrounded and beloved by the divine in all of our many ways.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I will, we'll let you
Do we
know.
dance?
Huh?
Yeah, can we, yeah,
Do we
that's right.
dance?
Are we
That's
dancing?
right. Katie wants to should
dance,
dance because
right?
she's a smart cookie.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me, well, I won't.
Are there rules for the
Do you have a
dancing?
song?
There's rules. Do you, yeah, what song,
You have a song
would
that
you
you
like
know?
to add?
Is that to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Best choice. What song?
Oh, let's do Texas Hold'em.
Okay, that's fantastic.
No.
All right. All right, great. I'm going to mute myself. I'll do That's a great song. It combined like God and sex in an interesting way.
Liquor, yes.
That liquor.
All right, well, fantastic. And
love your Pandas.
hopefully, if you ever come to San Antonio, do let me know, because
Yeah, I will.
I split my time, but I'm often here.
I like how
Yes.
after you dance, Carmen, your panda's still talking.
Oh, well, yeah, I believe in the little spirits.
Yeah.
The music is still in his head.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. All right. Peace.
Peace.
Peace and love.